these families did not survive one person taking on a path and the rest of them not being part of the process. If we're in a state of becoming, it needs to be with the people we signed up to do this with.
Mm-hmm. We're supposed to have successful children, the perfect house and a job with all the perks, and yet we're running ourselves on a hamster wheel, never gaining any traction towards the life we actually care about, the one that matters to us. Welcome to the most exciting adventure of your life. Welcome to a new way of living, and welcome to season 2 of the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast.
Hi, I'm Casey.
And I'm Andy. And we're on a mission to inspire and guide 1 million people to live a life of purpose, passion, and self-mastery through the 5 mountains of cutting-edge development and mental fitness.
Our guest today is co-founder of Total Potential, an unbeatable mind coach, registered dietitian, and RYT 200 yoga instructor. She's also mom of 3 and wife of one and only. Together with sibling Jake, they are on a mission to maximize growth and cultivate wellness in families everywhere. Their new book, Total Potential, helps families thrive in body, mind, and spirit, and most importantly, in connection with one another. Cole is joining us today to discuss her new book, Total Potential. Welcome, Cole.
Thank you guys so much. I'm super excited to be here with you.
Oh, likewise. Before we jump in, we're kind of curious, what are you most excited about in your life right now?
Well, the book feels very exciting. I mean, I've had 3 babies, but this kind of feels like I've had like the gestation period of like creating something and then putting something out into the world. So it's been a really exciting time. Kind of coming out of this COVID period for families. And I know we're still sort of in it, but out of some of like the deepness of it, it's just been a really exciting time to support families because there seems to be this pull of, hey, maybe we don't have to live by any one certain way. Like there are options. We get to make some decisions. And so it's a really fun time to be, supporting that growth in families. So yeah, super excited about all of that.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And we're super excited to talk about the book and just what you're doing to help families. There's so many different family dynamics out there. And to your point, struggling in all different ways. Who exactly is this book for?
This book is really for both moms and dads. That's why Jake and I wrote it together, to have both that male and female perspective. For both moms and dads, really of like anywhere from babies to probably like high schoolish age. That like school age, middle school and down is really like the sweet spot of where there's so many family dynamics at play and it moves so rapidly because the kids are growing so quickly.
Yeah.
That's really kind of the sweet spot of where we're hoping to really make some impact and support people's growth. But yeah, both men and women and parents that are, in it, like with the whole pack, the career, the kids, all of it.
Thinking about families, dynamics, I can't think of a lot of siblings that would sit down and say, hey, let's write a book together.
Yeah.
Or, sit in the same room for very long.
Yeah.
Did you always have that connection with your brother, or did you always work well together and get along?
So I'm the older of the 2 of us, and we're not quite 2 years apart. So there was definitely a phase where like he was torturing me for many years.
I've been there.
Yeah, wrestling me to the ground or whatever it was. But yeah, we've always really gotten along super well. And I would say the connection, like as we were having our own families, grew even more because we both really had this strong desire to really cultivate a family and like a system that was more than just like what was expected. Like we kind of were checking those boxes as we stepped into family. We married people that we really love and adore. We were having kids, we were having their careers, like the things that we were like supposed to have were falling into place. And we both just kept having this conversation, like, what the heck is going on? This does not feel like I expected it to feel, doing all these things we were supposed to do. And so that definitely brought us even closer together. But yeah, we've been really close over the years, and it's just the two of us in our family. So as siblings, we've been a tag team for a long time.
Oh,
Nice.
that's great. Something you said resonated with me, and I think it's about it's within the bailiwick of what we do here as Unbeatable Mind coaches, that we have options, we can make different choices, and COVID opened up, I think, a lot of people's perspective to how they can show up and move through life and earn a living. And I agree with you. Right now, this is a really interesting time in the coaching world. There are so many people trying to find their new way, their new path through life, and it's our responsibility and our pleasure to help people find their way. So,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, so what was your family dynamic like growing up? I'm
Well,
curious.
yeah, I mean, we have incredibly loving and caring parents, but they were super young. Like my mom and dad were both 21 when I was born. My dad was still in college. My mom was working at J.C. Penney's. Like they definitely had to, pull themselves up by their bootstraps to really create a life that was designed for a family to have. And we were there was a lot of like expectation around performance. Like we were both athletes, we were expected to do well in school. Like there was definitely some of those types of dynamics at play. um, but we also, like, both sets of our grandparents are still alive and they've been married for over 65 years, and we have had them like very much part of our lives. So we not only had like the foursome of us as a unit, but we also had these grandparents that were really intertwined in our lives. Like actually my one set of grandparents had an apartment inside my parents' house for since I was in the second grade. And so we've had like multiple sets of parents almost, which has been such a gift because there was just a lot of love, a lot of perspective, a lot of time and attention us as individuals. So yeah, I mean, we grew up in the Midwest. We have like really kind of down home, types of experiences, just like really grounded and rooted. But yeah, it was like a very simple, very simple childhood for sure.
Oh, beautiful. That's great. Having to be able to spend that much time with grandparents, I think is a gift.
Hmm.
You know, Harkening back to my childhood, one set of my grandparents was still alive through my childhood, and we spent a lot of time. They were only a couple miles away from us. So that was great. And I remember big picnics on the weekends and the holidays, just big gatherings. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So fast forward to parenthood. You're a mother of three children, entrepreneur, author. What's a typical day like in your household?
It's really sporadic, which for my like type A personality is pretty challenging. But um,
This episode of Fierce Planet Adventures podcast is brought to you by Five Mountain Coaching, licensed unbeatable mind coaching, integrated accelerated vertical growth across 5 domains of cutting edge development, designed by retired Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine. Learn the big 4 skills of mental toughness and resiliency. Discover the 6 pillars of performance. Test your mettle with custom created crucibles across all 5 domains. Visit fivemountaincoaching.com to schedule your free 1-hour unbeatable mind coaching session. That's the number 5, mountaincoaching.com. Begin your journey to becoming unbeatable today.
I worked as a dietitian like in a hospital for many years, and I worked in like disease management for a long time, and just found that it wasn't. I mean, it was important work, but it just didn't call to me in any
Mm-hmm.
way. And then I started working in a cystic fibrosis clinic, and this is a lifelong disease. There are so many moving parts, and I was working in pediatrics. And so all of a sudden, these family dynamics became the kind of axis which their whole healthcare experience turned around. And as I got into that space, and because it is a lifelong long process, it became so much more about wellness. And I was like, okay, there's something here that is so much more interesting, so much more, oh, like there's so many things at play and so much possibility when we're in this space. And so then I was a stay-at-home mom for like 7 years to raise my own babies. And as I was starting to think about, if I wanted to get back into the working world, what was that going to look like? And I was like, I need to still experience that wellness part that was at the end of my hospital working career.
Mhm.
And so at first so a dietitian, I have a degree in exercise science. Like, I was like, what about doing something like yoga? And so actually that's how I ever became involved with Unbeatable Mind, was I
Mhm.
went to yoga teacher training and loved that. But then it felt like in the place where I live, like yoga feels very much just like a fitness thing that people kind of check the box on, and not everybody, but certainly there's a lot of that. I was like, okay, well, there's still got to be something else. Like, there's got to be a way. And so that's around the time when this conversation with my brother was unfolding. And I was like, why are there no resources for families? Like, this work it's not, I can't only think about myself. Like, I would, listen to a podcast and it would be all about like this amount of time in the gym or this type of meal prep. And I'm like, okay, well, that's sweet, but I can't, like, that is not going to work with my 2-year-old, So it's like, where are the resources that support this type of work, like in a really realistic way in the family? And so that's kind of how we evolved and got here. But now the days are, filled with coaching and writing and
Mhm.
connecting and getting to have these kinds of conversations and lots of really fun stuff.
Oh, great. So what resonates with me in your story there is, your journey for one, and realizing, that this wasn't quite right. So you made some pivots, you made some changes. How long did that take you? It wasn't like a one night, hey, over and done, I've got my new path. Did it take a little while to suss out your journey and what your purpose should be?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this kind of backtracks a little bit, but I had this epiphany when I was like in my early adulthood, around the incredible value and importance of family. I was hit by a drunk driver, and my family, like, whom they connected, they supported, they, like, my parents grew closer. I mean, you see so many families that experience tragedy and like the family almost like implodes, right? And I was like, I mean, I had no business living through this accident. I was hit head on at 60 miles an hour. Like, it was just an absolute miracle that I was alive. And I was like, there has to be something deeper here for me than what I currently understand. And the thing that really stood out the most was like this family dynamic. Like, I was healing because my family was there to support me. They were connecting even more because they had this beautiful relationship and way of being together. And so that, I didn't have a family then other than my parents and my family of origin. But then as I was having my own family, that's when it really stood out. Like, okay, I know how important family is to me. I know how much is available in this type of relationship. And yet, like, it feels hard to find.
Mhm.
And so, as I was having babies, like, I was noticing that, but it's like full court press, right? Like, my husband was in his residency working 100 hours a week. I'm home with kids. And, there wasn't a lot of time to be like, hey, let's sit down and figure this out. And so I kind of coasted, for lack of a better word, through those first couple of years. But then once I had my daughter, who's our youngest, I was like, okay, I have a little space and time because I know I'm not going to be pregnant and having another baby anytime soon. Like, it's time to start figuring this out. And so I would say there was probably like a 3 or 4 year period where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this one thing and I'm going to see what becomes possible from that. And so, like, the first thing for me was getting back in shape and marching back toward the fitness. And then it was managing sleep. And, so it was like kind of this stepwise process, like in my own
Mhm.
process, to really find that purpose and passion and, what could even be possible there. I was not in a state before that to be able to experience that fully.
Yeah. So you started off with the first mountain, which is physical.
Yeah.
That's an unbeatable mind term.
Yeah.
Um, So why there though? Why that spot?
Yeah,
Why going?
that's a super good question. So I think for both Jake and I, that was the gift of being an athlete before we weren't an athlete, because we had always been physically healthy. And then with once that element of physical fitness was less regular in those early years for me of having kiddos, um, I know like my brain got so foggy, but the second I would go for a walk or a run or do something physical, that mental fog would kind of just boom, disappear. And so that was like my clue, like, okay, I really have to do this one thing because it makes everything else so much easier and better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So yeah, physical, we use a body first approach to mental fitness, and that aligns exactly with the what you just said, and also the unbeatable mind physical mountain, right? Because that's
Yeah.
where we begin our process with our clients is, getting back in shape and sleep and diet and nutrition. So great. Where I was going with that, the point that I wanted to emphasize, and you actually said it very, very well, is finding your purpose in life isn't a one and done thing, right? It's an evolutionary process. And for most of us, it takes a while to uncover. We go through iterations as we write it out and we think about it and sit with it. Um, so if you're out there and you're listening to this and struggling with finding your purpose in life, don't get discouraged. It's a process that may take you a while. So just
Yeah.
keep working at it.
To your point, Andy, like I even now in my daily journal that I keep, like I have written out my 3 Ps, so my passion, purpose, and principles, and I read them every single day. And even though now I'm like really clear about what those things are, there's still nuances that will pop up. Like, okay, yes, this purpose is around family, but there's a part of it that's around the integration of families, right? Like one word might change, but it's still an evolution, and being open to like that process that it's not the one and done, I think is like even more becomes possible for us when we're open to that.
Yeah, we're not pigeonholed into somebody else's idea of what our purpose is, or what our the past version of ourselves thinks our purpose was.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that leads me to, where does a parent begin their total potential journey? You talk about power tools, and I love this list that you've got here for folks. Kind of walk us through that, would you?
Yeah. So we in the book we started with the character power tools because number one, a lot of these words are very simple to understand, and once we have a clear kind of picture of what those things might feel like, it's actually really easy to start taking steps toward them. So something like um, simplicity, for instance, like once we have a grasp of like one tiny spot where we could make life simpler, even if that's just like decluttering the kitchen, like all of a sudden there's space to really take on more. And so these character power tools, the thing that's so cool about them is like, yes, they can be developed as like that one characteristic, but we presented them first so that as you kind of step into the mind, body, spirit work, you can really see that like, yes, you can develop these characteristics on their own, but you can also use these other aspects of training to grow the characteristic. And it's like this back and forth relationship between these two things. And so that's why we wanted to, really highlight and, these characteristics. Something that's really important to understand from our book is like, this is not, we didn't like fabricate this idea just out of the universe. Like these are qualities and methods that like time honored traditions that have stood the test of time. They've transcended culture and religion. And like these are qualities that show up in every single tradition of becoming. And so how do we utilize those, right? Because that was a real sticking point for me when I started my own journey like deeper into this self-mastery work, was like this one way wanted you to call it this thing and perform it this way, and this other way wanted you to call it this thing and perform it this way. And as I'm like learning these different traditions, I'm like, this is all just syntax. Like we are talking about the exact same thing. Why not use those qualities that every path talks about, and utilize them like just in really simple day-to-day ways so that we can be in a state of becoming, even in the state of like running carpool and like making lunches in the morning, like just normal life. So that was really important for us, not only like that these are just time honored characteristics that just are part of becoming, but then also this, back and forth between the mind, body, spirit, and who that allows you to be as a person. So yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So reading through your book, it looks like you've built a kind of a holistic approach here. So you also go into the physical realm as well. Can you talk a little bit about the progression and how these other aspects come into play? I know we touched on the physical, but that was just one of the touch points I saw. If you've been listening to our podcast or following us on socials, it's probably no surprise to you that I've been dealing with back issues for many years. And I want to take a moment just to tell you about something that I found that's helped me with my flexibility and durability and mobility. And that's called Kokoro Yoga, somatic warrior training. It's not just yoga. It also includes Tai Chi, Qigong, visualization, meditation, and breathwork practices such as Fit Warrior, Fighting Warrior, which incorporates functional fitness and some martial arts movements. And it's been just a really great way for me to maintain some flexibility and durability as I move through our challenges when we go and do Spartan races and climb mountains. So if this sounds like it's something that could help you out, check it out. The link's in the show notes.
Yeah. I mean, Jake and I are fully behind your philosophy of that. Like, you have to start with the physical. Like, we live in bodies and they need to be cared for. And like what you experience in other parts of your body, your emotions, your mind, like most often that is a reflection of what's happening in your body until that body is cared for, right? Then what arises in those areas can be a little bit deeper and more expressive. And so that we wanted to really highlight that, and in a really functional way. Like, I cannot tell you, for our community, time is one of the most challenging factors. And so breaking it down into simple ways that you can still take care of your body. And then, oh, by the way, like, support your partner in doing the same so that you both have this capacity to feel and be well. And then, okay, what does that look like to then be active and in relationship with your family? So it's like, it's not just how do I take care of me, myself, and I, because the fact of the matter is, like, as a mother, like, I end up at the end of my list, more often than not. And it's something to work on. It's an evolution. But the fact of the matter is, like, I have other people's needs who are incredibly important to me. So how do we do that work together in a meaningful way? There's been so many times where I've been on the sidelines of like my kids' games or in the bleachers at something and just felt like what a disconnect it is to see our children experience like intense athletics and like intense physical training, but then we're sitting and sitting and sitting, and like, what example does that provide? Like, I don't want my kids' example to be that they're expected to be fit and I don't have any expectations of any kind for myself, right? Like, I don't want that to be the model of what they think they want to become when they grow up. So there's a lot of layers to that physical piece. And then in the family space, like something as simple as, nutrition. Like nutrition, we can get so bogged down with all the I'm supposed to and I have to and it has to be this way and I need to do this. But like, if you break it down into the family space, it's like one of the most important things is, can we sit down to dinner together and actually be in conversation and community with each other? Because guess what? That environment itself actually promotes us making healthier, better choices. And
Amazing.
so, how do we use these like really simple tools as a way of becoming together? And so that's just like in the mind, the body space. Like, then you go into the mind and, oh man, like things like, what language do I use when I'm around my children? Like, how do I speak? Does my language reflect positivity? Do I speak poorly of others? Like, there's so many ways that we're experiencing each other's mindsets just inherently. And when I think about like our kids, like they're picking up so much programming from us. Like there's so much possibility if we're willing to do the work internally. Oh, like their conditioning, their mindset, their fallback system already lands so much, at such a higher resolution, if we're able to, provide that example. So yeah,
Yeah,
lots
yeah.
of
So
layers of
right, lots. So we can go
it.
on for a long time with just that aspect. So vibrational energy, right? So the energy that you as a parent are giving off, the way the language that you use, your body language, your verbal language, they all matter.
Absolutely.
Um, and is this an inside out approach, do you think, or an outside in approach? Meaning, does the parent start with the kids in your total potential journey, or should they focus on themselves first and building those skill sets with themselves?
Yeah, I would say it's an inside out kind of a journey. I would say that there's the element in family where two parts. Number one, everything is right there. Like you cannot hide from your junk in your family because it's all going to be present in an instant. So in that way, there's the outside can highlight the inside work that needs to happen, right? But there's always the component of like what's happening inside of me. Like my experience outside of me is a reflection of what's happening inside.
Inside.
And so we have to do that inside work. And because it's in relationship, I think there's a ton of exchange that happens as that work is unfolding, but it still has to start inside.
Wonderful. So you're actually taking on another really interesting aspect to this book, and that is donating 10% of the profits to United Heroes League.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that organization?
Yeah. So Jake has had like such a blessing to be working with them for several years now. It started out as an organization that was supporting kids to be able to participate in hockey. And we live in the Midwest. Jake's in Minnesota. Jake played professional hockey. Like that really struck a chord with him. But now their mission has grown and really become, and they now support lots of different types, like not only participation in sports, but it could be camps. It could be meeting athletes, professional athletes that put on events for military kids. And I think the thing that resonates the most for us is not only that capacity to be active, and like, let's face it, it's expensive to be part of sport.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of sports, it's limiting to be able, and there's so much to learn, like in positive team environments, there's so much for our kids to learn. So that's one aspect that's really cool about that organization. The other part that really resonates for us is, yes, one person, and Andy, I know you have a background in the military, like one person signs up to serve, and what a gift that is to this country. And yet really the whole family is they didn't sign their name on the dotted line, but they are serving as well. And I think the opportunity to really support and honor and care for the families of people who are serving this country, that really resonates for us.
I wanted to offer a little bit of time here, if we've got a few more minutes, just to talk about the other work that you do, because
Yeah.
you're not just an author, you're also a dynamic coach, and you're involved in the community as a facilitator or moderator on some other platforms. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there with?
Yeah, I mean, the coaching space is just like, if I think back about the reason I got into healthcare to begin with, it really was that wellness orientation. And to me, coaching is really a holistic approach to caring for ourselves. And yes, like I'm not prescribing medications, I'm not, taking care of healthcare needs. But if I think about myself as a well person, it takes the whole of me to be well. And so that's why the coaching work is so profound and so life-giving, because literally before your eyes, simply by just being curious, being there enough to actually listen to what someone says, and having a few like really powerful tools in your back pocket to utilize. Just those couple of things make so much possible for the person that you're working with, because my true and absolute belief is that every answer that we have ever needed lives inside of us, but we don't have a lot of space for finding those answers in the way our culture and society are set up. And that's why coaching is so cool, because it's a space designed for the person who's in the coaching relationship to find the answers that already live inside of them. And so it's so empowering and so life-giving to watch the transformation that happens in the coaching space. But yeah, so I mean, I do one-on-one coaching, I do boat crew coaching, I do corporate coaching, lots of different types of coaching experiences, and they're all super awesome. Like they're very different from one another, but really cool, the things that show up there. Unbeatable Mind has been, an incredible gift. And it's something Jake and I are both feel so lucky to have been part of and learned the coaching system through Unbeatable Mind as a way to support the families and individuals that we're working with. Because it's life-changing work. I mean, you guys,
it is indeed. It is
Yeah.
indeed. We can both attest to that.
Yeah.
Fact. So where can people find out more about the powerful work that you're doing?
Yeah, everything is our website is all brand new. It's www.thetotalpotential.com. Everything's there. On all social media, it's at The Total Potential. And I'm always open for questions and, how does this work show up in your family? You can email me, info@thetotalpotential.com. All the conversations, the podcast, the blogs, the book, all of it's there.
Awesome. Also, books available on Amazon.
And Barnes and Noble, everywhere. Yeah, all the good places.
We'll have links in the show notes to your socials and your website in the book.
Thank you first for coming on, taking the time, and just being so open to sharing. I really do just see how important it is to have some resource out there for a family dynamic like this. To your point, we see so many talks and shows about developing the self, but you can't develop yourself without running into other individuals at some point. So
right. And the thing we kept seeing happening as this original conversation between my brother and I was unfolding was that we had people in our lives who were pursuing developmental paths, either yoga or different types of courses. And unfortunately, like what happened was their families imploded. Like these families did not survive one person taking on a path and the rest of them not being part of the process. And so that to us was like a massive red flag. Like, no. Like if we're in a state of becoming, it needs to be with the people we signed up to do this with. So we really that was a real driving force for us to be part of the change that could be possible for families.
That is huge. Wow, so many possibilities there. And I love the fact that you're also doing it in such a way that give people, like you were saying, those simplistic moments of what it feels like to go, what each of these character traits are, or these tools can be. And just having that little identifier of what does that actually feel like just gives people so much more to go on, rather than some, pie in the sky idea you've heard some people talk about sometimes. So
yeah, that's the gift of being a yoga instructor too, right? Because for me, it's all like, how does the body experience it? Because as soon as we can identify that, the awareness that's available is just remarkable. And then once we have the awareness, then we can make change that actually matters based on our real life and our real existence. So yeah, that embodiment piece is like the part that gets me all jazzed up.
Oh,
beautiful.
So true.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Cole. We appreciate you, and the work that you are doing is just amazing.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me, and the work you guys are doing is amazing. We'll be talking soon.
Absolutely. Yes. All right. Go win your day. Friends, if you found the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast helpful, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. It helps others find our podcast.
If you screenshot your review and tag us on Instagram, we'll send you a classic Fierce Planet Adventures sticker. For your water bottle, cooler, car, send us a direct message with your mailing address on Instagram, and we'll send you that sticker right out.
Thanks for joining us and live fiercely.